What is up, you guys, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Fit Women's Weekly Podcast, coming at you from my studio on a very, very cold morning. I know that a lot of you guys are still dealing with winter, and we had a beautiful image of spring, and then we got hit. We always get like a faux spring and then one more burst of winter before real spring comes around. So we're in that last bit of winter right now, and it is really chilly, but I know that once I get going and get excited to share today's topic with you guys, that I will absolutely warm up because I get to share my 50K ultra marathon recap with you guys. I know I've been talking about it for months, and in fact, I went back into my email to look to see when I signed up for this race, and it was back September 11th, actually, of 2022 that I signed up. So I'm going to take you guys through a little bit of my training, answer some questions that I received from you guys, and then, of course, recap the day as well and share how recovery is going and some of the surprises that I've experienced from finishing up the race. And really, this is just also a little diary post for me, but hopefully you find this interesting as well. So first things first, what did I actually run? I ran an event called the Wild and Wacky 50K. Well, it's actually called Peyton's Wild and Wacky 50K. It is a yearly race here that's been held, I think, since 2015, something around that. So the idea is it is for a little boy whose name was Peyton Moore, and he was very involved in running and athletics growing up. He was 9 years old when he suddenly passed away, and as a way to remember him, his parents, his dad, Noah, put together this super fun event. So the idea is that it is a trail race where on the hour, every hour, you run a 5K course. So it's the same course for the entire day. So you kind of get to know it, but it's hard. It's fatiguing, right? Because you run and then you rest, then you run and then you rest. I actually did this race back in, several years ago when it first started. You have the opportunity to do it as a team or as an individual. The first two times that I did this, I did it as a team, and it was really, really cool. And then once Dan and I started getting more into trail races and going up to the mountains, we did it as a solo person event in 2016, so 7 years ago. And here's the thing. Dan did it. He got his little medal. He made it through all 10 laps. I pulled out after my 8th lap back in 2016 because of some knee injuries. And I also just think that at the time, I just wasn't mentally as strong. I feel like if something hurt or something bothered me, that I took that as a sign of listening to my body, and I just couldn't handle it and I backed out. So looking back, I don't remember if I was in a lot of pain or if I just thought that I was in a lot of pain and I was just tired. But regardless, I quit. I did not succeed at this race. And then we also did the race called Quest for the Crest that same year, which is an insane mountain trail run. It is one of the hardest trail runs. It is a 50K as well, but it's more of like a 70K up in the mountains, and it is one of the hardest in the country. I know several people that have done it and would agree with me. We had also done it in 2015. That year I did complete it, but I didn't meet the time cap, so I didn't succeed. And then in 2016 I did it, and I had to pull out due to hydration issues, which that one was very justified. My hands were my fingers were the size of hot dogs. I was feeling sick. I withdrew around after mile 18. And luckily, because I've been doing social media and blogging and podcasting for so long, that I have these stats to be able to look back on. So why am I sharing my previous 50K experiences with you guys? Because that was part of the reason that I wanted to try and do this one. You know, since 2020, life has been really hard for us. We own a fitness studio. It's had its ups and downs. We've closed our fitness studio to classes where now I do 100% online with Fit Women's Weekly Live. And I love it, but my life has been so absorbed in that and work. And I really haven't done anything strictly for myself. So I was just craving challenge, and I was craving wanting to prove to myself that I could do hard things. So when I saw the 50K Wild and Wacky pop back up saying registration's about to open, I did it. I signed up because I was like, you know what? I've had a slew of really bad 50Ks. I still haven't really successfully earned a medal in one. And I just wanted to prove to myself that I could do it mentally and physically. And again, with all the hardships that we've had over the past few years, this was just something that I wanted to do for nobody else but myself. And I think it's really important for us to put ourselves in those challenging positions because we are stronger than we think. And we have to sometimes prove that to ourselves. We have to get outside of our daily routines and do something that just kind of throws us on our butt and makes us work for it, right? And I'm tired of working so hard for other things. And I wanted to put my attention on something else. So at the time, Dan was like, we don't have time for you to train for a 50K right now. We've got so much going on. But I knew in my heart that I needed to do this. And I mean, he's 100% supportive. And so I trained. And so now, before I actually talk about the race, how did I train? This is going to be surprising to most people. I did not train the way that I probably would recommend to anybody, but that's why I'm going to share it with you guys. So I have always, my running schedule, y'all, I am a person of habit. I pretty much do the same thing every day. I know like, okay, today is Monday, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z when it comes to business, life, marriage, house routines, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not the most spontaneous person. However, I've been running on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for at least the past probably 4 years, very consistently. That's just my time. You guys know I love running. That's just my time to be with my own thoughts. And so because I also work out for a living, I couldn't add more running days to my routine because the other days I'm already doing Fit Women's Weekly Live 2 times a day. So that was out of the question. So I actually didn't add any additional running days. I kept my Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday running schedule, and then I slowly amped up my volume a little bit, but nothing crazy, again, like most ultra marathoners probably would. I started about at 6 to 7 miles per run back in September. That's just kind of my happy distance. That's what I pretty much did for every run that I did because it's about an hour of running. And then over time, I kind of went to 8 miles, then 9 miles. And then in January, I pretty much boosted it up to where 10 and 11 miles was standard. And then the week before my race, I went to 15 miles. And that was it. And so you might be going like, oh my God, that's really not a lot of running when most marathoners, not ultra marathoners are getting 50 to 70 miles per week. I was getting in I was averaging probably 35 miles a week. So very low mileage in comparison. However, this is absolutely what helped me get stronger because I wasn't just focusing just on my running. I was also focusing on just the time of movement and the time on my feet. So I was running all of that stuff, but you guys have to also keep in mind that Monday through Friday, I am working out at least 90 minutes a day just with Fit Women's Weekly Live. So that in and of itself is adding strength to my muscles. It is adding time on my feet, which is super important. I was working a lot on my leg endurance and my squat strength to help build my legs up. I was still doing a lot of aerobic workouts just in a different way. Now, of course, to be a better runner, you do have to run a lot, but I already have that base fitness down. So those 35 miles per week with the, what is that? What is 90 times 90 minutes a day, 5 times a week? That's a lot of working out. And I think combined, that helped me. It's a heck of a lot more working out than I was doing back then. And that's just all that I could do. I couldn't change it up. I couldn't add more. And I also couldn't take away because that's just my work schedule. Do I recommend that everybody work out at least 90 minutes a day, 5 to 6 days a week? Absolutely not. No, that's crazy. But that is what I do for a living. And so that's what it called for. And so I had to tweak my running training to fit with my work training as well. So together, it actually worked really, really well. So I was nervous. I've mentioned on this podcast several times because I wasn't really increasing my mileage. I wasn't doing those 20-mile runs. I wasn't doing the 25-mile runs. I was hesitant. Like, am I doing this? Am I going to be able to do this? Am I strong enough mentally and physically? And the Friday before the race, I even sent out an email to my list, which if you're not on it, go to fitwomensweekly.com and you can sign up for the newsletter. But I sent out just a really motivational speech saying like, we're capable of doing hard things. And there's going to be times when you're doing something that's outside of your comfort zone, and you're going to question, why am I doing this? This isn't fun. I don't deserve to be here. I can't do that. And it's that voice in your head that's trying to tell you that you're not capable, but you are so much stronger than you think, and you have to tell that voice, shut the F up and keep pushing. And I am so excited that that negative Nancy voice never showed up in this 50K. And I thought that it would for sure, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So that was getting into things. You guys already know that my pre-race ritual is I paint my nails some funky colors. So I did a whole bunch of different colors this year for my fingernails. I put my hair in pigtails. That's my power braid that makes me feel strong and confident. I woke up and I braided my hair. So let's kind of go through race day morning leading up to the race, and then we'll jump right on into the actual big event. So race day morning, that night before, I went to bed right around 9 o'clock, and I woke up, had my alarm set for 4:45. I had to be at the race between 6 and 6:30 for packet pickup and to prepare for a 7 a.m. start time. So I woke up at 4:45. I ate oatmeal, which I haven't done, obviously, because I'm more of an animal-based diet, which I'm going to actually update you guys on Friday, because big revelations and changes on that coming soon, which I'm actually just starting today. So I'm excited to share more of that in Friday's podcast episode. But Friday started with my race day tradition that I've been doing for years and years, which is oatmeal, a little bit of honey. I had some raisins on hand, and I also mixed in some pepita seeds just for a little bit of crunch. I had that, and then as I was able to get ready, go to the bathroom before I left the house, which is always a plus, and then made my coffee and drove to the race, which was only about a 35-minute drive from my house, so not bad at all. Got there, got myself set up, and so got my packet ready. And then the one thing that I realized that I had forgotten, because I have really been out of the racing loop. It's been since 2016 that I've done a really big race. And so I kind of forgot the camaraderie and the teamwork that's involved in such big things. And I knew that Dan would be coming later that morning, but I had told him, like, don't worry about waking up so early with me and rushing out the door. Take your time, show up when you can, not a big deal. That is one thing actually I would have changed, because when I got there, y'all, I'm not kidding, everybody had a tent set up, like one of those big beach tents, except for me. And I'm not just saying that as in like, oh, 75% of people. No, literally 99.9999% of people had a tent set up. I was the only one that didn't. I had a little lunchbox cooler of food. I had a bag with a couple of different clothes to change into, an extra pair of shoes, a couple like headphones in case my main headphones went out, and then I had a yoga mat and a towel. And I only had the yoga mat and the towel because I was already in my car. And when I got to the race, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to have some time between each round. I'm going to want something to sit on. And so I was in a plot where a tent could fit with just that. And I felt very kind of lonely at first and kept sending Dan messages. He was trying to motivate me that morning. And I was like, yep, just a girl running by herself. I've never felt so lonely in my life. But because so many of you guys also knew that I was doing the race, I had a ton of DMs and emails coming through, text messages coming through. So I was never bored, and you guys absolutely cheered me up. It was a big race. It sold out like within a week or two of registration opening up, so I didn't quite know what to expect with that. But it was very packed, and luckily, because it is an ultra and because you do have that station, like that home base station, there was a ton of food options and drink options and coffee and all that kind of stuff. I had already had all that stuff. I had a big cooler packed, so I wasn't too worried about it. The race, because it is set on every hour on the hour, runs perfectly on time. So at 6:55, we all lined up behind the starting line, and at 7 o'clock, it went off. Now, I'm not going to recap every single lap for you guys, just the ones that kind of stick out in my head, and then I will share my finishing time and stuff at the end. But the first lap was actually the worst lap, and I think it's because everybody was there. It was high energy. A lot of the teams, instead of having just one teammate run, a lot of the teams had several teammates running with them, even though they only had one bib and one timing chip, just because they wanted to get out and get moving. And it was really cold that morning. So I think everybody was just hyped up and ready to move. So there was a lot of people in that first lap, and it took a lot of finagling to try to get around it. And we at that point, since it was the first one, didn't exactly know the course. So it was slow. And at that time, because I know one of the questions was what shoes did I wear, I was wearing a pair of ASIC trail running shoes, and they were very heavy. My calves hurt from the get-go. They were miserable on my feet. And so that first lap was actually my slowest lap because of just all the unknowns and all the people that were running it and my shoes. Lap 1 is done. Course, a little disappointing, but now that I know the course, it'll go faster. But it's almost like a star. You do like a out and a back, and the first half was just, because you're on trails with hundreds of people, it's hard to kind of find your way. But then the second half, you're kind of more, you can separate a lot more. That was a lot better. But I stuck to the game plan. My game plan is to stay between a 28 and 32 minute because I want to make sure that I have time to actually recover. But there were a lot of people doing like the walk-run method, which maybe, I don't know, halfway through I'll have to do that. But I did also, I was trying to wear my trail shoes, but they're just not comfortable. So I'm going to switch over to just the good old Mizuno's. My calves were really seizing up a little bit. But first lap, done. But I did make it back with my goal was to make every lap around 30 to 35 minutes, just because I knew, obviously this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I made that one back in like 28 something. It was underneath the 30-minute time cap. So every time I would do a lap, I would text Dan and be like, here's what I did. And he'd go like, all right, in the next lap, you need to try to slow it down. Remember, you still have 9 more laps. You still have 8 more laps. So that one went really well. And then once I finished that first lap, I came back. I ate some trail mix, which actually turned out to be the best thing for me for the day. I had made just a bag of mixed nuts, and then at the race itself, they had M&Ms. So every time I'd walk by the counter, I would grab one of the little like Dixie cups of M&Ms, stick it in the bag of trail mix, and then make it some really good trail mix. So it was nuts and M&Ms, and I would just eat a handful or two of that between every single lap. I would drink a lot of water between each lap. And what I love the most is that I was able to pee between every lap, because in the past, hydration had been a huge issue for me. And I could I remember when I did the Quest for the Crest the last time when hydration was such a huge issue, I did not stop to go to the bathroom once in the several hours that I was up in the mountains on these trails. So it was my goal to actually not force myself to have to go to the bathroom, but when I would finish a lap, I would need to go. And I was like, yes, okay, awesome. I am hydrated. I'm feeling good. And also eating that food between each lap is also something really new to me because, again, in the past I would go, okay, you have enough body fat and glycogen stores to technically be able to run for hours on end. You're not hungry, you feel fine, just keep going. And I would try to eat the least amount as possible, and I would never have an official bonk, like where I would bonk out, or like hit a wall, but I just didn't feel good. And obviously, again, with nutrition and my hydration issues, that's tied together. I needed to make sure that I was getting some salt, which is why I really focus on the nuts. And so even if I was hungry or even if I wasn't hungry, I would eat just a little bit of something. And I also had some Reese's Easter eggs, like the mini ones, and those worked really, really well for me. So 4 laps are done. Still feeling good. Each lap is around the same. I'm keeping it between 27, 28 minutes. It's a little faster than I had expected, but I'm still feeling really good. I think the trick to this is I'm doing something different than I've ever done before, and that's actually eating more in my races. I'm normally someone that's like, I'm fine, I can do this, and I eat like as little as possible. And this time I'm actually making the conscious effort to eat quite a good bit between every single lap, and I think that's just all the difference. My joints feel good, I feel hyped up, I haven't had any negative self-talk yet. I'm smiling as I cross the finish line each time. So yeah, 4 down. I know I still have a long way to go, but after the next lap, I am halfway there. Lap 1 was done. Lap 2 was done. It ended up being a little bit faster than lap 1. Lap 3 was done. It ended up being a little bit faster than lap 2. And Dan was like, dude, you got 7 more laps. Slow down. And then lap 4, I want to say lap 4 was done. And then lap 5, I think, was actually my fastest lap. It was in the 26s, I want to say. But that was also the lap where if you wanted, it was the 5K. So you could sign up for the Ultra or you could sign up for just 1 lap of just a 5K. And that was held at 10 o'clock. So 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so it's the fourth one. And so that was just a bigger group of people, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't get stuck in the whole group. So that ended up being my fastest one. And then, oh, I should also go back. Remember how I had mentioned that those ASIC trail shoes ended up being terrible? They were. I have run in them before, but I just haven't run on trails in a while. So I had packed those thinking that would be the best choice. They were not. I immediately ended up changing back into my Mizuno Wave Riders, which I love my Wave Riders. I am a huge Mizuno running fan. I've been running in them for over 15 years now. And then I'd also messaged Dan to say, hey, when you come, bring my On Clouds. So that way I could still have a pair of shoes if I wanted to change, because there's no way I was going back. I actually ended up tossing those ASICs out. Putting them in like a donation bin. And so I had the Mizunos, and then I also had my On Clouds. I ended up not changing out of the Mizunos. I kept them on the whole time, and they felt amazing. One other training tip I would recommend, anytime you're doing a big event where you're on your feet for a long time, bring a pair of shoes to change into when it's done. My favorites, I had my Tevas. Those are our like hiking, camping shoes for like when we set up camp at night, we can put our Tevas on. And I love those for the end of big hikes or big runs, and they were there. So I had my Mizunos, my On Clouds, and my Tevas. I did not end up wearing the On Clouds. I wore my Mizunos the whole time, and then my Tevas for when the race was done. So that was that. After 3 laps, 9 miles, I ended up eating half of a sandwich, which settled in pretty well. It was a little bit heavy for me, just something I'm not really used to. And then from there on, I did eat the other half after 3 more, so after mile 6. But I kept it between every run doing the trail mix or doing the Reese cup, and or not Reese cup, but the Easter egg Reese's, and that ended up being the best. So I ended up doing about between 200 and 300 calories between every lap. So that worked amazing. And then drinking water helped a lot too. And then Dan showed up, and actually he showed up while I was running lap 5, and it ended up, because you're allowed to have pacers with you. So he ran lap number 6, and you guys, this is a funny story. Dan does not run very much anymore. He hates road running. He's never been much into road running, but he does love trail running. And every once in a while, we'll go out and we'll run either on the trail or on the beach. But that's, with his new job, that's just not something he's been able to do very often. But we always have the philosophy that you should be able to go out and run at least a 5K. We generally have the idea of, like, for the 2 of us, that we always want to be in shape to be able to run a half marathon, which I have talked about on this podcast before, because if something really cool comes up, I don't want to have to say no because I can't physically do it. I want to be able to say no because I don't want to do it, not because I can't do it. And he's always held that same idea. So he was like, I'm going to run 3 laps with you. We're going to do this. So I'm like, cool. So he gets there for lap number 6, and he's like, you've been going too fast. I want to make sure that you stay strong. Even though, y'all, I was mentally in it. I felt so good that day, but I understood where he was coming from. I was going faster than our goals. So he's like, I'm going to do this in a 30 to 35 minute pace. It's going to be fine. Yeah, it was not fine. Because it was his first run, of course he had adrenaline. It ended up being a lot faster. I think that one was right at like a high 26, low 27 run. And I was like, dude, you're fired. If you're trying to pace me, you are the worst. But what was so funny about it is because he doesn't run anymore, y'all, he was on the struggle bus. When he was starting to cramp up a little bit, and he kind of kept telling me, like, you can go ahead. And I was like, it's 3.1 miles. Come on, you got this. So we did do that one together. And then once we crossed the finish line, he's got his hands on his knees and huffing and puffing. And the guy at the finish line was like, dude, your woman's showing you up over here. Because I just walk right off because this is my 6th one. It's like I'm in a routine of things. I'm like, yes, I got this. And Jan looks up. He's like, yeah, I know. And this is my first one. And this is her 6th one. So that was just kind of cool to hear that acknowledgement of, like, yeah, you're in pretty good shape. So we rested, obviously. And then for mile 7, he really had his heart set on proving to himself that he could run for a little bit. So he did do 7 and 8 I shouldn't say with me. He ran 7 and 8. He was in a little bit of pain because, again, that's not something he's used to. And we did run separate because I told him we tried to start together for that lap of 7. But when you are running and you've been running for a while, sometimes going slower than what your body wants to go is harder on your joints and it's more painful. So at one point, maybe 500 yards into the run, I was like, I love you, but this hurts me to go this pace. So he was like, I get it. Go do your thing. So that one I ended up just finishing like maybe a minute faster than him, nothing crazy. And then in the 8th lap, I finished probably about 3 or 4 minutes ahead of him, but he did it. I was very proud of him. And then because he could tell, it wasn't a matter of if I could finish this race because I was so mentally strong, you guys, and felt so good. It was just a matter of like when I finished this race. So he went ahead. He was like, do you mind if I go ahead and beat traffic? Because, I mean, getting into a trail, it's very slim and hard. So he wanted to get out. He's like, I'll go ahead and leave. I'll go get our celebratory dinner and everything in place. And I was like, yeah, that would be fantastic. So laps 9 and 10, I was back by myself. But again, I never had that of like, oh my God, I can't do this. It was more of just, let's get this done. I loved every second of it. The 10th lap you could do whether you participate in the race or not. So a lot of people were carrying beers and just walking. And at that point, I could tell that I was doing well. I knew that most people that were doing this race were doing it as a team versus individual. And I could kind of see the women that were in front of me or behind me. And so I was just like, I just want to be done with this. I don't want to walk it. I just want to prove to myself. And so I did. And that one was under like another 27, I want to say, pace as well. It was the last one. I finished strong. And when I crossed it, all I could think of is I finally did this. And not only did I do the race, I didn't walk at all. I ran every single lap. I gave every lap everything that I had. I was able to do a lot of negative splits throughout from like, I don't know, lap 1 to lap 6 or so. And then after that, they just kind of all stayed the same. And I freaking felt like $1 million. The adrenaline was high. It was just that great reminder again of you can do hard things and I can do hard things. And I freaking did that. And after 4 attempts of a 50K, I finally deserved the medal that I had around my neck. And that was so awesome. The hard work paid off. I think I'm also just because of the stuff that we've gone through the past year personally and business-wise, I'm just a stronger person. I didn't accept, oh my gosh, my legs are tight as an excuse to maybe I shouldn't run this, right? I know that 31 miles running in a day isn't necessarily healthy. Like I don't think that doing an Ironman is healthy. You shouldn't be doing it back to back, but you do it for that day. And it's to prove to yourself that you can. It's that pride and that feeling of accomplishment and the hard work that pays off. And it was cool. So here's one other little funny story before I just talk about kind of the post-race recovery and all that kind of stuff. And I'll share my results too. During the race, like I said, in the morning was really, really cold. We were running in long sleeve shirts for like the first 3 laps. And there was a lady volunteer at where the trail split. The trail ended up kind of being like a star shaped. It was made of basically 3 out and backs. And where all the splits were, there was a volunteer who was an older lady, but she was a running coach and so, so nice. And every time we'd go by, she's like, all right, you guys, lap 1, lap 2, you get it. And she'd always say like, good job. And then on the 4th lap, when I ran without my shirt on, or just a tank top on, without my long sleeve shirt on, I'm running towards her and she goes, all right, you guys, lap 4, you got this. And then she looks at me and goes, holy moly, you got muscles. Because they were hiding underneath my clothes before. And I was like, yeah, I got some muscles. I work hard for these little muscles. And so then every single lap that we would do, she would see me coming and go, all right, there's my muscle girl. You got this. And it was just, I'm smiling ear to ear, just thinking back on this day. I could not have asked for a better day. The weather was perfect. The mindset was perfect. My body felt perfect. The crowds, like the people there were perfect. The volunteers were amazing. And that lady just was the best. I actually wanted to stop on the last round and give her a hug, but she had some people around her. So I might try to find out who she is because like I said, I know she's a running coach. Her name was Coach Tammy because that's what the back of her sweatshirt said. So I want to find Coach Tammy and just tell her, you made my day so much better by boosting that confidence and just making me feel like a badass every time I ran by. So shout out to all the volunteers out there that just work and you don't have to. So thank you for that. It made for just the best day ever. So as for how I did, I just went into this wanting to do it, right? Because I'd have 4 past failures in the past. I just wanted to succeed. I ended up running exactly 9-minute mile for all of the paces, which I will absolutely take. I ended up doing it in like a 4 hours and 4 minutes for 31 miles. I placed 21st out of everybody, so men and women. I was second in my age group and 8th woman all around. So I don't know. I will take that for not quote unquote being a runner and just somebody who loves to run. And by saying I'm not a runner, I just mean I'm not in the race world anymore. I used to know, like, be able to go to these races and know the people and high five them, and that's just not me anymore. So while yes, I am technically a runner, that is not who I identify myself with anymore. And so it was really cool to still find my pocket and feel successful in that space. So yeah, it was pretty good. And then I drove my butt right home because I was very, very tired. Dan had ordered us pizza. That is our tradition from Mellow Mushroom. We had some celebratory champagne. And then I was in bed by 9 o'clock that night because I could tell everything was starting to like kind of tighten up a little bit. And then that takes us to post-run recovery. The next day, I was very sore. My lower back was really sore. My quads, my hamstrings, and my glutes were really tight, very, very tender. The DOMs were definitely setting in. I still got up and did my normal Sunday fun day cooking day, which actually helped to move things around and help stretch a little bit. And I did stretch later that day. And then I went to bed again early that night. I've really focused on hydration. And then this week in of itself, I don't know what I was thinking. I kind of forgot that after running 31 miles, I'd probably be sore. And so I had all these great plans for Fit Women's Weekly Live. We were going to start a new strength training program this week and really kick off the intensity. And then on Sunday, Dan and I were like, yeah, no, that's not happening. We have started our new program, but things are really going to kick off next week. So just all of that to say, if you are like, oh man, I really wanted to jump in on this 8-week program for Fit Women's Weekly Live, it's not too late, you guys. My legs are still recovering. I am taking this week as a recovery week. I'm still leading the workouts, still getting them done, but I'm going lighter, a little bit slower. Today is Tuesday when I'm recording this, so it's 4 days after the event. I am not sore anymore, but I am taking the week off from running. And I'll probably take next week off from running as well and just kind of listen to my body. Even if you don't feel sore, your body has gone through a lot and it's very inflamed. One of the things, so I'm actually looking at 2 parts to help me see when my body is recovered. My first is my heart rate, my resting heart rate. I know my body. I know what is normal, quote unquote normal, when it comes to like my Fitbit data. And right now my heart rate is about 6 beats higher than normal. So that will naturally come down over the next couple of days, and then I'll know that I'm back into a nice recovered spot. And then the second area that I look at, weight is the other thing that I look at. So, you know, it's natural to think, oh my God, you ran an ultra marathon, you can eat whatever you want, and you're probably going to lose weight. No, that's actually not the case because your body has been through so much. Your body is very inflamed. Your muscles are holding on to extra water, and joints are inflamed. They're recovering. And so actually after the day after the race, I was up a little over 2 pounds and I am still up at that. And it generally can take about 5 to 6 days for that weight to come back down. But that's just a sign that my inflammation needs to come back down and that my body is still a little bit swollen, which I can see like puffiness in my face and stuff. So between my resting heart rate and my inflammation / body weight, I can see that trend of right now I'm still in recovery mode and then it'll start balancing out and going back to normal. So that is where I am. But overall, I feel really, really good. And I can see how it would be hard to just want to jump right back into things, but I am being smart with my training. I am an adult now. I am not a 20-year-old that can just bounce right back. I am I turned 39 in like 3 weeks. So you got to listen to that body. You got to take it easy. So lots of water, lots of good quality food. I am decreasing my sugar intake because I did have a lot of sugar during the race, obviously, and just getting myself back to my normal routine of things. So I know that I have chit-chatted for quite a bit, but I do want to answer some of the questions that you guys sent in that I haven't already answered. I loved getting your questions. Never hesitate to reach out. Most of them I have already talked about before. So now let's talk. So the shoes I wore were my Mizunos. The best part of the Ultra, if I had to pick one thing. So during lap 3, where you're starting to get the groove of things and you're just, the route, it's now just like, just get it done. And during that, I was giving myself a pep talk in case I started to have that mental blah, right? I was going like, okay, you're feeling great now, but if you have this, what are you going to do? Kind of just laying the groundwork. And I had Dan's voice in my head saying like, just suck it up and you just do it. You just run. And right at that point where I'm literally thinking about my husband and his coaching advice in my head, one of our songs came on my playlist. I didn't actually make a playlist. I just did random Spotify playlists that were already created. And it was a Jack Johnson song, Better Together. And it came on and I just smiled. I mean, I'd already run. I think I had like a quarter of a mile left of this particular run. I was getting ready to be done with 9 miles. And I was just grinning from ear to ear. And that was one of the best memories. The other best part was obviously that super nice volunteer giving me that confidence boost and being like, dang, you lady, you're strong. You got this. So yeah, those were my best feelings. And then having Dan there when I walked up and he had found my random pile of yoga stuff and food, and he was sitting there, that was pretty good. As far as what was the worst or the most challenging part, there wasn't one this time. I guess the most challenging part was the soreness that I felt after, but if I could have outlined a perfect race, this would have been it. Again, like I had no negative self-feelings about myself. I never felt unworthy of being there. Yeah, it was great. I don't have any bad things to say about it. It was hard because it's hard to run 31 miles, but at no point did I think I couldn't do it. So yeah, it was great. My plans for my next challenge, no. I do not have plans yet for my next challenge. There was talk, the Bulldog Challenge, which I've done several times in the past, is now open for registration. They're doing it again this year, but my girlfriends and I decided that we were passing because we just weren't happy with it last year. It's not worth the money. I feel like they've let the quality of the race go down, so I'm not going to pay to not have fun and be challenged the way that we want to be challenged. So no, I do not have my next challenge yet, but if you have something that you would like me to do, let me know. I mean, I'm always up for recommendations. And then this question was very strange to me, but I will answer it anyways. Are you still planning van/digital nomad life? I've actually never planned on van/digital nomad life, so I don't really know where this question is coming from. So no, I think I've mentioned it years and years ago that I thought that it would be cool to do, but Dan has never thought that would be interesting. So that has never been anything in our life. Now our plan, we do still have plans to eventually move out to Colorado, but we got some other goals that we have to set first. So in order for that to happen, we got some personal things and business things that we have to achieve here in Charleston. So that's the plan, is to move out to Colorado. But as far as I think it would be cool to live in a van, my husband does not. Which, one last thing before I kind of wrap things up, is if you enjoy these podcasts, which are free, by the way, and I put out free content every day on Instagram and on YouTube, if you're unable to support Fit Women's Weekly Live by becoming a member, obviously that is the best way, and that is how I love connecting with you guys the most. It is such a personalized experience and training program. But I understand that it is not for everybody, and maybe you love the workouts that you're doing right now, but you still want to support us in some way. One thing that you can do that is I am actually going to set up a Buy Me a Coffee. A couple of people have recommended me doing that. So if you are like, man, I love your stuff, you're just the best, or congratulations on running your ultra, I will put the Buy Me a Coffee link down below. And that just helps to support the channel. It helps to support the content that we do. Obviously, these take a lot of time to do it, and time is money, essentially. So if you want to support Fit Women's Weekly Live, go try it out for free, fitwomensweeklylive.com. If that is not in the books right now, just $2 coffee, right? You can do a little Buy Me Coffee down below. And as always, also a completely free way that you can show support for me and the channel is to share the content. When you hear a podcast that you like, share it on your social media. If you have a reel that you love, share it on your stories. Always tag me because I am so appreciative, and I will always reach out and just say, like, thank you so much. That means the world to me. And if you ever have questions or topics that you want on this podcast, slide into my DMs over at Kendall Boyle Fitness over on Instagram, or you can email me, kendall@fitwomensweekly.com. All right, you guys, that was my race. I did it. It took 7 years after the last race, but I freaking did it. I loved every second of it, and I cannot wait for a new challenge. Like, when I say I don't know what my next challenge is going to be, doesn't mean that there's not going to be another one. Just means I don't know what it is yet. So again, if you have a recommendation and you're like, hey, I'd like to see you try XYZ, comment. Let me know what XYZ is. All right, you guys, if you're listening to this on the podcast, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a quick review. Just a sentence or two would mean the world to me. And if you're watching this over on YouTube, comment down below. Let me know what your favorite event is that you have personally ever signed up. Have you ever done an ultra before? And if so, which one? So we've done the Peyton one before, and then we've done the Quest for the Crest. And my husband also tried to do one called the Georgia Death Race, I think was the one that he tried to do, but he, and I had a broken leg at that time, so I did not participate, and he did not finish that one, but he has finished Quest for the Crest under the time cap. And he has done the Peyton's Wild and Wacky with me as well. So yeah, now I'm ready to get back in the mountains. I'm ready to trail around. I'm just ready, y'all. I'm ready. All right, you guys, thank you so much for the love and support. Mwah, mwah. You are the best. And I will be back on Friday because I've got to fill you in on the carnivore stuff and nightmares. There's your teaser. Come back on Friday and I'll fill you in. Bye.